John Coates makes a father's plea to every American. She means everything to me, and an unconstitutional law prevents me from protecting her from a clear and present danger. Melanie Coates is 7 years old as she sits at her desk in a classroom in Florida, just 465 feet from a massive cell tower. According to the BioInitiative Report, a comprehensive analysis of over 1,800 studies on electromagnetic field exposure cell towers should be at least 1,500 feet away from schools to minimize risks to children's developing bodies and brains. Yet, Melanie sits at barely one-third of that distance, exposed to microwave radiation throughout her school day. Melanie is more than a statistic for the millions of children who are exposed to unsafe levels of microwave radiation. She is the daughter of John Coates, the founder of RF Safe, a leading organization dedicated to reducing exposure to harmful radiation. John's mission to protect children like Melanie is deeply personal, rooted in a tragic loss and a relentless fight against outdated, unconstitutional laws that prioritize corporate profits over public health. This is his story, and Melanie's plea for your help. A father's loss, the birth of RF Safe. In 1995, John Coates lost his firstborn daughter, Angel Lee Coates, to a neural tube disorder. Neural tube defects, which occur when the brain or spinal cord fails to develop properly, are devastating conditions that often result in early death. Angel's loss was a turning point for John, setting him on a lifelong mission to understand the environmental factors that might contribute to such disorders. In 1997, a groundbreaking study revealed that chicken embryos exposed to electromagnetic radiation suffered from neural tube defects similar to those seen in humans. This revelation deeply resonated with John, who saw the potential connection between environmental radiation and the tragedy his family had endured. By 1998, John founded RF Safe, dedicating his life to researching the dangers of radio frequency radiation and developing solutions to reduce exposure. What began as a personal journey of grief and discovery evolved into a mission to protect families everywhere from the invisible dangers of wireless radiation. Now, 30 years later, John faces a new crisis, one that hits painfully close to home. His daughter Melanie is growing up in a world saturated with wireless radiation, and her school is just 465 feet from a high-powered transmitter. He knows exactly how dangerous this exposure is, yet there's nothing he can do to protect her. The legal quagmire, Section 704, and a parent's powerless fight. What is Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act? Section 704 of the 1996 Telecommunications Act is an industry-written provision that prohibits local governments from rejecting cell tower applications based on health concerns. This law effectively silences parents and communities. John Coates cannot legally challenge the placement of the cell tower near Melanie's school, even though decades of research link RF radiation to serious health risks. Enforces industry-engineered standards. The FCC's safety guidelines, established in 1996, were created by engineers, not doctors, and ignore non-thermal biological effects like DNA damage, oxidative stress, and neurodevelopmental disruption. Violates constitutional rights. Section 704 infringes on the First Amendment by barring health-based objections and the 10th Amendment by stripping local governments of their ability to protect public health. The science: what we know about RF radiation and children. A dangerous proximity to cell towers. Research shows that children are particularly vulnerable to RF radiation due to their developing brains and thinner skulls, which absorb more radiation than adults. The BioInitiative Report recommends keeping cell towers at least 1,500 feet away from schools to reduce exposure risks. Melanie's classroom sits just 465 feet away, far too close for comfort. Studies have linked proximity to cell towers with increased complaints of headaches, fatigue, and sleep disturbances, higher rates of behavioral issues in children, long-term risks like cancer and cognitive impairments, non-thermal effects, the real danger. While the FCC's safety guidelines focus solely on thermal effects, tissue heating, scientists have documented numerous non-thermal biological effects of RF radiation, including neurodevelopmental risks. Yale study on ADHD, Mice exposed to prenatal RF radiation displayed hyperactivity, memory deficits, and reduced attention span. Dr. Martin Paul's research, RF radiation activates voltage-gated calcium channels, VGCCs, in neurons, leading to oxidative stress and neuroinflammation, mechanisms linked to autism spectrum disorders and ADHD. Reproductive harm. RF exposure reduces sperm count, motility, and morphology while increasing DNA fragmentation. Pregnant women exposed to RF radiation may face higher risks of miscarriage and fetal developmental issues. Cancer risks. Both the National Toxicology Program, NTP, and Ramazzini Institute studies found increased tumor risks in animals exposed to RF radiation, even at levels below FCC limits. Why Section 704 must be repealed, a violation of constitutional rights. Section 704 is not just bad policy, it's unconstitutional. By preventing communities from raising health concerns about wireless infrastructure, it infringes on free speech. Parents like John Coates cannot legally speak out against the cell tower near their child's school. Strips local governments of authority. States and municipalities lose the ability to regulate public health and safety. Public Law 90-602, the Forgotten Mandate. In 1968, Congress passed Public Law 90-602, Radiation Control for Health and Safety Act, requiring federal agencies to conduct ongoing research into radiation hazards, update safety standards to reflect new scientific findings, and inform the public about risks and mitigation strategies. Yet this law remains largely unenforced. The FCC's thermal-only guidelines have not been updated in nearly 30 years, leaving Americans exposed to standards based on outdated science. Help me protect our children. A call to action, rallying for Melanie and every child. Stand up for children like Melanie. Melanie Coates' situation is not unique. Across the country, countless children are being exposed to dangerous levels of RF radiation because of cell towers placed too close to schools and homes. Section 704 prevents parents from protecting their children, while outdated safety guidelines ignore decades of scientific research. John Coates is calling on every parent, every citizen, and every policymaker to speak up. This isn't just about Melanie. This is about every child forced to sit within 1/3 of a safe distance from a cell tower. It's about every parent stripped of their constitutional right to protect their family. It's time to repeal Section 704, enforce Public Law 90-602, and demand safety standards created by doctors, not engineers. What you can do: demand the repeal of Section 704. Write to your elected officials and demand that Section 704 be repealed. Parents and communities must regain the right to challenge cell tower placements based on health concerns. Push for the enforcement of Public Law 90-602. Urge the FDA and FCC to update RF safety guidelines to reflect modern science, including non-thermal effects. Spread awareness. Share Melanie's story with your friends, family, and social networks. Educate others about the risks of wireless radiation and the need for meaningful reforms. Adopt safer practices. Turn off Wi-Fi at night, use wired connections whenever possible, and keep devices away from children's bodies. Protecting our future. As a 7-year-old, Melanie Coates is counting on us for protection, just like every child in her position. She should be learning, laughing, and growing in a safe environment. Instead, she spends her school days just 465 feet from a massive cell tower, exposed to microwave radiation that her father, a leading advocate for RF safety, knows is dangerous. And yet, thanks to Section 704, John Coates, and millions of parents like him, cannot even question this placement. This is not just a failure of public policy. It is a failure of democracy and a betrayal of our children. The time to act is now. Repeal Section 704. Enforce Public Law 90-602. Demand safety standards based on medical science, not corporate convenience. Melanie needs your help. Every child like her needs your help. Let's fight for their future. Take action today. Contact Congress. Demand the repeal of Section 704 and the enforcement of Public Law 90-602. Spread awareness. Share Melanie's story and educate others about the risks of wireless radiation. Support independent research. advocate for studies on RF radiation's health effects. Together, we can protect Melanie and every child from the invisible dangers of wireless radiation. The time to act is now. Visit RF Safe to learn more.